I'm going to kind of start at the end of that where you brought up the pricing. How much do you ask? What's too low? And this is a hurdle that I really had to overcome with my own business journey. Is I used to be the person with really low prices. And actually, once I raised my prices, I ended up getting more sales because it's not that people wanted a deal. Part of it is when people see a price, they associate it with value, if that makes sense. So like if you're selling an ad for $10 versus $100, people aren't going to associate a $10 ad as being valuable. So why would they even put their money there?
Yeah, I love it.
So
can I piggyback
that's really
on that
has
just
to,
because I have a recent experience like that. So a long time ago, I was a handyman. I started managing properties, my own and other people's, and I figured out how to do a lot of the work in houses, plumbing and electrical and stuff like that. And I have a buddy who does fix and flips, and he knows me from that realm, and we've done like 50 invoices for the same guy. Actually more than 50, but barely over. And we're finishing up one of his projects that was in a condominium, and a woman, older, mostly retired, just works a couple days a week to do whatever. She's like, "Hey, I've been seeing you do good work down here. Come upstairs. Let's look in. Maybe you could do something here." And I remember I gave her a high price, like a fairly high price, because, if I'm going to do it, I want to do it well, and I want to make money, and I want it to be fair, but I gave her something that was not low. And so we ended up bidding her out for $5,000 and some odd dollars to do a few things, painting, some plumbing, some electrical, not a huge thing, but around $5,500. And she told her friend on the phone while I was in the earshot, she was like, "Oh yeah, they're doing all this stuff, and this is how much it's costing." And the person on the phone said to her, "Oh, you could have had my buddy do it for $200." And she's like, "No, I want this to be done right." Mm-hmm. And so partly it could have been because she saw some of our work in a different unit, but she wanted to pay the higher price. She deserved to pay the higher price because she wanted to have a good job done. And we are making it really, really good. And I think that goes along with what you're saying, Shaye, which is, in a way, there's a perceived amount of value on how you charge. And if you're charging like $5 per episode, sure, you could get lots of people, but they might not believe that they're getting a lot of value. But if you're charging, for example, $5,000 per episode, they'll be like, "Man, this must be a great podcast. This is getting in front of like the right person." So anyway, I wanted to piggyback on that because I had an experience in a different field, not podcasting, mm-hmm. that I thought was interesting to bring up. So how do you know if it's too low? I cut you off and I want you to finish.
Well, and you have to do what feels right to you internally as well. Growing up, my parents always told me to trust my gut. That's something I've always done. And sometimes for me, it's trusting my gut and actually saying, okay, we're going to raise that just a little bit because I know I have a natural tendency to go below that. So, but with that, but then don't just look at the downloads, right? We talked earlier, like downloads, consumption rate, and you brought up in your story, doing a good job. Well, do a good job for your advertisers. And that might not just look like a podcast ad. That might look like a newsletter ad, a social media shout out. How else can you add value to your partners? Can you put them on your website if you have traffic there? Look at all the places you have an audience and figure out ways to give them the most exposure possible, because a package is typically more enticing than just a single mid-roll or pre-roll. So I hope that explains a little bit about kind of pricing and some structure there. I encourage people to create a media kit. If you're not graphically inclined, it's not that expensive to hire someone, or there's this great free resource called Canva that you can use as well. Or even my first one wasn't super fancy, but I just made it on Word too. So you could just have a media kit that outlines what value they are getting in exchange for that dollar amount.